this is Trisha with Insectopia, and I was seeing Susan in the chat. Hello, Susan. You are sleepy but well. I would have to agree with you there. I'm sleepy and maybe a little bit distracted today. Just have lots of other things happening in my life at the moment. So, I'm hoping not to make this one too long. Just because, yeah, I'm a little tired too. So I chose a little baby insect. In fact, it's not really a baby insect. It's just a little itty bitty insect. And this is our friend the pygmy grasshopper. Now, they are grasshoppers, so they have short antennae and less than a third of the body length, those types of things. But normally, the average grasshopper is in the family, the average grasshopper is in the family Acrididae, but pygmy grasshoppers have their own family all together, and it's Tetrygonidae. And pygmy grasshoppers are one of those that are super duper cute. They're really, really fun to collect and pretty much impossible to identify. I have tried many times. I have collected what I believe is 5 or 6 different species of pygmy grasshoppers, and I haven't gotten any further than it's a tetrygid because they're not very well studied. So it's a question. Tetra does mean 4, but I'm not sure exactly what when we say Tetrygonidae, what they're referring to. But I might have a book that'll tell me. So if you give me 2 moments to open this book up here, it's possible that I have a cheat sheet that'll tell me where the name came from. Here it is. Let's see. Nope. Sorry, guys. I thought it was going to be here, but I didn't actually write it out. Makes me want to look a little bit harder, but it's not in here. So, I'm not sure what it would have been, what Tetrygonidae might mean. Have I ever found a pink orthopteran? No, I have not. I've never found a pink grasshopper or a pink katydid. And I know they're out there. They're pretty rare. They're just one of those things I've never found. You did? Oh, that's awesome. Oh, that's really exciting. I'm glad you got to see that. Okay. So let's go ahead and start this guy here. Pygmy grasshopper. In the family Tetrygonidae. This specimen was collected in Meridian, Texas. Meridian, Texas. In 2021. Oh, look at that. This is one of those specimens I collected in August on my way back home. You know what? This state park, they had put me next to, this state park, they put me right next to, like, I want to say it was a marsh, but I guess it could have been the edge of a small lake. But pygmy grasshoppers do tend to be kind of, I guess we're going to say water loving. They're not really aquatic, but you do find them around like wetland environments, like around wherever you see cattails, you can kind of find these guys around. Right? They are the shiny ones. Oh, the pink ones. They're so freaking adorable. Alright, and what's cool about this pygmy grasshopper is its entire body fits under my microscope. So let's go ahead and measure him and see how long he is from the front of his head to the back of his abdomen. I'm not going to add these, I'm not going to add the reproductive stuff into our measurement. And I kind of want to go from the front of the head this way. I'm going to make a straight line. That sounds about right. So our specimen is, on our microscope, measured 1.02 centimeters. So just a little bit over a centimeter long. And this is a full-grown pygmy grasshopper. It wasn't going to get any larger. This is an adult. And I can tell that because it does have wings. When we zoom in on it, we'll have to look around. Right? That's really funny. Because the soupy ground is so good for jumping on. No. That soupy wet ground is not good for jumping on. And I think that it has something to do with the fact that they kind of... I'm not sure. I don't know much about pygmy grasshoppers. I know they're super cute. I know that they're found in wetland environments. I think I read once that they kind of dig down into the substrate, but they don't have digging legs. So I didn't want to kind of like come out and say that. But if they do kind of squish themselves down into muddy or wet environments, that might be why they like wetland. Oh, that's funny. I love it. You see my bendy antenna? Exactly. He's like, I got geniculate antenna. What are you talking about? And I think that this grasshopper may have lost its antenna. I'm just realizing that. Huh. Oh, maybe not. I'm going to turn him so we're looking at him head on to see if he's still got his antenna before we start sketching him. He's lost them. Darn it. So you can see his antennal sockets right here. But I've got a couple specimens of pygmy grasshoppers. So I'm thinking, so yeah, you can see those two little circles right there. That's where his antenna would be. They're pretty short. They're filiform. They're straight. But I'm going to go and grab another pygmy grasshopper, one that has all of its antenna. Give me one moment. Grasshopper. You can see that it is also teeny tiny super duper cute, but this one actually has its his antenna with him. If I zoom all the way out, this specimen is actually smaller. This species is actually smaller than the previous one, funny enough. I'm going to leave it right around here. The lighting isn't great, but I can measure from the front of his front of his head to the back of his body. Oh my goodness, he's so small. He's so cute. We love him. This pygmy grasshopper is 0.8 centimeters. 0.8 centimeters. It's actually 0.80. So, yeah, from the front of his head to the back of his abdomen. And this one is also full grown. You can see the fully developed wings. And once an insect has wings, we know it's an adult. This specimen actually was not collected in 2021. It's an older specimen of mine. So after I get this first microscope image locked in, we can move the specimen a little bit and I can come up with exactly where it's from. There we go. Oh, this specimen was collected. Aww. This specimen was collected at the Michigan State University Entomological Research Farm. Oh, that's fun. So they have a little pond over there, and I probably found him over near the wetland there. This one was collected in 2010, which would have been one for my sophomore entomological collection. Aww. That's so fun. I'm glad we got to pull this one out. How do you pin these little guys without sticking yourself? That is a wonderful question, and very, very carefully. And you do poke yourself. I feel like I poke myself every time I pin insects. Whether that's just when I'm reaching for like a pile of pins. Sometimes you have one pin that's like in the wrong direction. And then definitely when I'm trying to hold a specimen and pin, sometimes you slip. Oh, welcome, Marley. Should you eat dinner or draw an orthopteran? Well, I mean, if you had to choose, I'm not going to force you to stay and draw, but we would love to have you here. I'm hoping to stay pretty quick on this guy because, yeah, I'm hoping to stay pretty quick on this guy. So, we're gonna, I turned my paper landscape just so that I have, the room to make him bigger if I want. I'm going to start with our head here. Our head is... There's a word for it. I always like to double check and make sure. Yes. So, our grasshoppers are what we call hypognathous, meaning that their heads have their mouth parts facing towards the ground here. So, I'm just going to start my sketch with a vertical line that would be the back of the head. And you can see his compound eyes are way up there at the top, and they're so cute close together, and they're so little itty bitty. I just love them. We're gonna give the top of the head kind of rounds up, and then it angles back down towards the mouth parts. We are gonna zoom in and check out some of those mouth parts, but this is kind of the head shape that we're gonna start with. The next segment here, we're going to talk a little bit about the pronotum on our tetragids, because what looks like the wings here is also an expanded pronotum. So many beetles and roaches and even like shield-praying mantids and cockroaches, they have their pronotum and it projects forward over their head to protect their head. A beetle family that's popular that has a pronodal shield over its head would be like a firefly. When you look at them from the top, you can't see their head. But our grasshopper here has a pronotum that's actually expanded back over the wings. So if you see this section here that looks like the front wing, it's actually going to continue all the way up here, and it is the pronotum. And we'll be zooming in and checking that out right around here, where you can see where the pronotum ends and where the wings underneath continue through. But that's going to be our defining characteristic for pygmy grasshoppers, is that they have a pronodal shield that extends past their thorax and protects their wings. So for our pronotum shape, we're going to do something like this, where we have this this wide plate that comes down and kind of enwraps the body, and then it comes back up to protect the wings. We do have some legs here, so I'm going to go ahead and give us some stick legs, just so that I know approximately how long I want my legs to be while we're looking at the size. So probably from the bottom of the guy right up to where the bottom of the eye is going to be. Back down. I'm trying to avoid getting involved with those mouth parts there. And then just really short tarsal segments here. So that's going to be just my stick figure for my first pair of legs. You're going to pull out your sketch of a firefly. That's awesome. You should do that. All right, so let's see. We've got that front. Now we have a middle leg, and that middle leg is going to be coming out. We have a little square here. That's actually the coxal segment. It's going to be coming out right here after the pronotum, and our leg in the microscope is pretty slanted down, but I'm going to pick it up just a little bit, more like this, so that our grasshopper looks more like he's up and walking around. And you can see the hind leg, instead of having it positioned like my first guy's was, where it's up and across, it's kind of folded in on itself. I'm hoping that the other side is going to be a little bit better for our sketching purposes, but it's going to look something like this, where we've got, all right, the hind leg is going to be connected to this body underneath, and it's going to be nice and wide at the base and narrow at the top. This is a shape, and we're going to obviously be fixing the shape as we zoom in, but I always imagine this, the hind leg shape of a grasshopper, more like a bowling pin almost. I don't know if that makes sense. Alright, and so we've got that giant femur, the tibia that comes down, and then the tarsal segments. And I do believe we're going to have some tibial spurs down here, spines. Some tibial spines down here to grasp the ground as they're jumping. And then, let's see, so we've got, this is just that pronodal shield, and we want a little bit of wing to come out from underneath that, so it's going to look roundabouts like this, where we have a continuation of the wing, and then we have the end of the abdomen. And the abdomen does not go past the wings. So that is going to be kind of our very light first sketch that helps us put everything into focus and allows us to kind of work off of something. I don't like to sketch on a blank sheet of paper. I like to have at least something kind of like my guidelines. So that gives us something to work with. And you didn't know so much, so you labeled the pronotum as the head, and that's funny because that happens regularly. Like if you look at ladybugs, for instance, you can't, that's not really a pronodal shield because yeah, the pronotum on a ladybug isn't really a shield, but people will generally see that darker region in the front of a ladybug and just assume that's the head, you know? There we go. I'm going to turn our specimen so that we can see if we can get that leg out of the way. Yes, we can. Look how cute it is. Whoa. Alrighty. So this is our head. And I was trying to get a good kind of side image of it that we'll be able to imagine for our sketch. I was just checking out the fact that it doesn't have a front leg on this side. Well, that makes it so that our leg doesn't get in the way. That's true. Because the antennae are coming off of the head, but the head is underneath the pronotum, so they look very similar. I think that's the same with cockroaches. People would see that big shield and not realize that if you flip a cockroach over, there's an entire head underneath there. He's wearing a turtleneck. Yes, he is. He has that pronotum that really protects him, honestly. Look at that. How cute. I love the textures, too. Ah, see? Good. I'm glad. See, I love being here with you guys. Okay. Grasshoppers. All right. One of the first things that I am looking at is not only the shape of the head, but the shape of the edge of this pronotum here. It's not kind of straight down and across like we had guessed when we were first kind of getting our lines down. There is this little bit of this S pattern where it comes up to the head a little closer, and then it's going to kind of round back. So we've got this kind of S shape, and as long as you're using that straight vertical line as a guide, you'll be able to get this shape down pretty easily. From here, I know that our tetrigid, our pygmy grasshopper, is almost like triangular on the top of his head. He's pretty interesting in that way. So you could always, if you wanted to play with a little bit of 3D happening here, you could give yourself a second line where we were going to have our head. Oh, let's see if we want to do something fun. Kind of like this. Maybe. Because then our compound eye is going to not only stay right here on the side of the head, and it's going to kind of follow this line, but it's going to bulb up above it just a little bit because the eye is kind of happening over the edge of the head here. So something like that. And we would have the cross-hatching inside of our compound eye. So you know that there's lots of ommatidia happening there. And the eye is actually pretty small in comparison to the rest of the head. I think I am going to shrink my head just a little bit. We'll see. So let's see. Right around here, I'm going to bring our head shape down and then add our antennal sockets. So we've got this little circle here is going to be where our antennal socket goes. And then, you know, we have a scape, a pedicel, and a flagellum. I'm going to zoom in on the antenna and see what it looks like. So this is going to make sure that this first antenna is all on the same, at least it's on the same plane so we can see it all at the same time. The first antennal segment is this larger rectangular segment that is blending in. So there's this guy right here. That's actually our scape. So this first large roundy segment, that's the pedicel. And then the rest of these that all have a very similar shape here, these are the flagellum. Yes, so I do believe that's what it is. I believe they spend a whole lot of time on the ground, kind of like digging around in the wet or muddier regions. That's at least what I've heard. The funny thing about that to me is that they don't really have digging legs, so I don't know exactly how to imagine them kind of like digging around in a swampy environment. But yes, they're well known for being kind of very close to the ground, kind of in the muck, and then they'll jump out of and they live kind of at the edges of ponds and lakes. All right, so our antenna, let's see if I'm going to give us an approximate length for my antenna and then go ahead and count our flagellum segments, which are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I'm going to try that again. Terry was jumping around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So I have one segment that I want to double check before I continue on. Yep, there are 2 segments. So right here, so there are 12 segments right here where it looks like there's another kind of very short segment. That is an additional segment. I was going back and forth between like one funny shape segment, but it is 2 segments right there. So you've got a total of 12 on the flagellum. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. There are species in the Northeast. The first specimen that we were looking at was from Texas, but this specimen here is from Michigan State University. And I figure, you know, if I was going to draw a different pygmy grasshopper, other than my favorite one that I pulled out already, we might as well do one from MSU. You know, Spartan Strong this week. One, two, three. 1, 2, 3. After the third segment, they actually start growing, getting longer. 4, 5, 6 looks like the longest segment. Yeah. So they grow until you get to segment 6, and then they shrink as far as 12. Alright, so that gives us our 12 segments. I don't think I've collected any pygmy grasshoppers in the Philadelphia region yet, and I do spend a good amount of time in marshy wetland areas, and so I'm not sure if they really like a lot of the marshy bog areas that I go to are so close to the ocean that they can have a little bit of salt water in them, and I'm sure that they don't really love that. Now, I was trying to see something interesting, and I'm not sure what we are looking at, but I am going to point it out because, hey, it's part of science. Maybe you guys will see something. My thoughts is that what we are looking at is maybe a small ocelli, but I didn't think that they had those. Right here in the front of the head, there is kind of a very globular organ right about here, and it looks like a sensory organ, kind of like an eye, but they don't have 4 eyes, I don't think, unless that's why they're called tetragony, which would be hilarious. I'm going to look it up really quick. Yeah, see, I don't think that they have 4 compound eyes, so I'm not sure what these other guys are. I feel like they could be ocelli, but they're bigger than ocelli normally are. I guess it's possible that they are another sensory organ. Now, I was trying to get a decently lit up image of the mouth part, and it's just being a little tricky. So let me go ahead and describe to you what I'm seeing so that we can sketch it together and you can try. Is there the same on the other side? That's a good question. Let me go look. Yes. There is another one on the other side. And when I look at them from the front, they do appear to have individual lenses inside of them. It makes me feel like they are additional compound eyes. Let me see if I can get some light in here. This is as close as we can get, but we're looking at the tetragid right now from a head-on view, and you can see it right here and right here, very small, almost like you would if our pygmy grasshopper was wearing glasses. That would be where the nose pad sat. Right, it has 360 vision. What does it need ocelli for? I'm not sure. Labrum and labium. Yes, that's what I was trying to get us to be able to see. Are these mouth parts right here? And I think this might be all right for some of these mouth parts. Yeah, this will be fine. All right. So what are? Oh no! My lighting system decided to write 3, a whole bunch. All right, so what are we seeing? We are seeing the clippius. We're seeing the labrum. We are seeing a maxillary palpi. Let me shrink these words so they don't get on top of me. All right, so let me go ahead and point these out. There we have the front of the head here. We have the front of the head here, and you can see that the head ends and has this kind of angle down. So when we're sketching it, I'm going to take this line down from the antenna just a little bit, more like that. And then once we get here, we're going to take this line, let's see, from the edge. Yeah, I'm going to come up just a little bit. So as I'm imagining my head, instead of rounding out like we had before, I'm going to give us an angle in. That's going to give us space for adding the mouth parts, and I'm just going to round it out up here. Because that's just the front of our head. Now, we have to add what we call the clippius. It's this first one right here. This plate right here is kind of a plate that connects the head to the labrum. I don't know if it actually connects. It's just kind of in between the head and the labrum or the upper lip. So this next one that's here and rounds down, that's the labrum or the upper lip of the grasshopper. So that one is coming down here too. I gotta make these kind of small. Give me a minute. All right, so we have the clippius, and then we have the labrum. Now, I mentioned that we can see the maxillary palp, and that's this little 2-segmented guy over here. It may be 3-segmented. Yeah. He's so cute. All right. It looks like it's 3-segmented, and there's one segment that's kind of hidden down there underneath a plate. But we have 3 segments there. And the other thing that we can see that's a little bit trickier is you can see the mandible, and it's this triangle right here. I wish he wasn't so dark, but, oh, you know what? I'm going to put him on a dark black background, and maybe my microscope will lighten him up. We're going to see if that'll work. It could do all of the not good things, but we'll see what happens. Convince my microscope to brighten more. Nope. Huh? Maybe. Maybe it just took an extra minute. We're gonna see. Okay. There was a moment that I saw the mandible, so I think we're doing good. right here. All right. There is, you're going to laugh at me. It just looks like a little triangle right here. That is the edge of its, we're looking at its left side. So that's the edge of its left mandible here. And when we're sketching it, we're just going to take right here from the base of our head and pull it up like this. And we're kind of just going to meet that upper lip. So you have the clypeus, you have the labrum, and you have the mandible here. Now, you also have something that we call the maxilla and the labium, which is the bottom jaw. And those ones are super tricky to see down here. And I'm not sure exactly where the labium is, but we can see this palp right here, that three-segmented palp. It's going to sit underneath the mandible, and it's connected to the maxilla. That's why it's called the maxillary palp. So that is going to be how I end my grasshopper head. I'm going to leave that little circle here without individual eyes on it, but I honestly believe I saw little ommatidia or individual lenses in the compound eyes. Is that a broken off palp on the right? That right there is a broken off front leg. The round thing is smoother looking than the rest of the surface. I would have to agree with that. Oh, that's funny. The uppy-downy chompers rather than the lefty-right chompers. Yeah, kind of. Because you have these mandibles that go this way and chew, and then you have the labrum and the labium, and they don't really chew this way, but they do kind of like, they use them like lips, right? So they like grab onto their food and kind of bring them towards their teeth, their mandibles. When I've looked at bigger grasshoppers, they have 4 very nice and long palps. Is this maxillary palp intact and just very short, or is it missing some segments? Great question. Let me look and see if the other side is the same. Personally would think that they just have really short palps, especially in comparison to like good sized grasshoppers. But I'm gonna flip him over. Look at that. So yes, these are just shorter palps. And this is what he looks like from below. Now, when you said turtleneck, you really meant it. Because I believe that this is the pronotum wrapped around even the bottom of the head. So I think I'm going to have to modify my sketch to kind of maybe pull it up here closer to the head. More like that. That's really cute. I love him. Alright, we're just drawing our friend from the front to the back, so let's go ahead and look at our front leg. This is one of those insects that you can see the coxa, trochanter, femur, tibia, and tarsal segments. You can see them all. Oh, come on, Mr. Friend. Stop over. Don't darken it back. I was happy with how you looked. Here we go. Alright, this should give us a view of that front leg right here. You can see right here at the base of our pronotum, right around there, you can see it has a coxa. And then it does right here, there's this little triangular segment. It almost looks like a kneecap. You can imagine it like that. But instead it's between the hip and the femur. We call that the trochanter. This big segment right here is the femur, tibia, and tarsi. Alright, so that gives you all of the names of the body parts, all the names, pieces of the leg that we're going to be looking at here. So, coxa, trochanter, femur, tibia, and then all of these tarsal segments, or the tarsi. Let's see. So, our first little leg, little coxal segment is almost square in shape, and it's kind of tucked under the pronotum, which is kind of cute. So I'm going to take my pronotum here and kind of round it up a little bit, and that's going to give me space to add my little coxal segment here. Alright, so we've got a coxa, and then from the coxal segment we're going to be adding a trochanter, which is just this little kind of knee shape here. It's going to angle the leg back up. So now that we've got here, this is where our femur is going to start. It's going to come up, and it looks like, I believe our femur came up halfway up the head, almost up to the eye, but not all the way. So we're going to come up right to around here. And I might not be able to avoid getting this leg right through the middle of the mouth parts, because that's just the way it is. But I guess that's okay. So you've got coxa, trochanter, the femur coming up. This femur does, well, you know what? It might be shorter than this. And maybe a little stockier. Give me a minute. I'm going to change the shape of this guy really quick. We'll get there. That's about right. Okay, so we've got this femur here, and then our tibia is going to be coming down. I'm going to see if I can reach the tibia forward a little bit and hopefully avoid most of my mouth parts that I worked so hard on. So here, I'm going to connect the tibia to the very front of the femur, and then the tibia is fairly narrow in comparison to everybody else. So here we go. That's fine. We get these tibial spines here, and then, let's see. I go 1, 2, it appears to have 3 tarsal segments. Yeah. It almost looks like it has 2 tarsal segments, but that would be weird. I believe it's 3. But there you go. There's your image. From what I am seeing, this right here makes me think that this is 1 and then this second lobe here would be 2, and then this larger one would be 3. That one is a little tricky, though. The first 2 are super short. Yeah, all right, good. I have agreement. Alright, so we have some tarsal segments here. Let's see. I think my last one is a little bit fat. I need to make it a little bit narrower and wider at the end. Something more like that. That's much better. Very good. Alright, we have a head. We have a front leg. We're getting somewhere. The pronotum is so impressive. I just get wrapped into viewing it sometimes. So we are coming back and looking at some of our shaping here. Whoa! Ah! We were eaten by our words. I don't think those words are going to come back right. Nope. When that happens to my words, I have to redo the text box. I don't know how to fix it. Give me a moment. I think I have 7 or 8 text boxes now because I just build a new one anytime that happens. Makes me laugh. There we go. Alright, so let's see. I'm just going to write Pygmy Grasshopper because I want something that'll hold our spot while we're chatting about all of the other things that doesn't look too complicated. That's what we're looking at is Pygmy Grasshopper. So, the pronotum that comes here, it rounds around and then comes up. This little wing portion, I said wing portion, but it looks a little bit like a wing. That's actually just an extension of the Pronodal Shield. So if you were going to keep with this type of 3D thought, you would take your pronotum right here and bring it kind of along its back. But then once we get right around here where you're right above that second pair of legs, you can kind of give it this additional shaping here, and then that's going to continue back up and meet the center. Something like that. But even though this just looks like the top, the pronotum is actually still continuing around down here. So it's going to come down, it's going to meet that coxal plate of the second leg, and it's going to come up. But now what we're looking at is it actually looks like there is, let's see, these remind me a little bit of like a window curtain type situation happening here. And then this one is going to likely come up like this. We'll have to see what happens there. But it gives us this plate here, and then our middle leg. So the coxal segment here. Our trochanter is triangular this way. The femur, let's go ahead and refocus so we can see the leg. And the tarsal segments on the middle leg are pretty much the same as the tarsal segments on the front leg. I think Marley decided to eat some food, and I understand. Alright, so our femur is going to be coming up towards the hind leg, coming back down, and I'm hoping to keep the tarsal segments on kind of this same plane so that the grasshopper looks like he's walking around. And you'll notice that his body is pretty low to the ground. That is true in these pygmy grasshoppers. They walk kind of low to the ground. I'm kind of short in my screen, aren't I? Whoop, whoop, whoop. There we go. I'm a little bit bigger now. Okay. Alright, so I'm looking at and trying to compare our the size for our middle leg. So I'm going to be taking it up. I think right around there, so that the top of the femur on both of these legs are fairly even to one another. The tibia is nice and narrow, comes down here, and it is going to go, it looks like it is going to be going in front of the femur of the hind leg, but that'll be okay. At least we're doing this one first. We do have that little spine. It is on the inside of our sketch, and because our leg is pointing out to backwards, the spine comes forwards. This leg, because the tarsal segments are going forwards, the spine goes backwards. So let's see. Now we have this first tarsal segment, the second tarsal segment, and then this odd one, this nice long one that starts kind of narrow, expands a little bit, and has two claws at the end. Super cute. All right. Let's go ahead and see what we can see past that middle leg. Alright, so I am seeing the edge of the pronotum where the pronotum, well, the edge of the pronotum where the pronotum ends. Let's see. And I was trying to get a decent image of it. This is one of those specimens that I think is absolutely beautiful. Just a little tricky to sketch. So if we see this little line right here, that's where the pronotum takes a sharp turn up and then comes out, and you can see right around here there's a little bit of these this like shinier yellow region, and that's a little bit of the wing that we can see. If we zoom out even further, that might help you kind of see where we're looking on the specimen. So the pronotum is still going. It comes here, and then it goes out, all the way out to pretty much the very edge of the wing. So when we come over to our sketch, it looks like instead of it coming up like this, well, maybe I'm just going to have it come like this. And then it has a very kind of, there we go, something like that, where you can see that it's nice and U-shaped, and then it comes up to the top, and that is where the, that's where the pronotum continues and expands to pretty much the ends of the wings. So when we get there, we'll be able to zoom in and see where those end. But that's going to be our approximate shapes for the moment. Now, those hind legs are ginormous. All right, and we can't really see much of the abdomen, and so I was hoping to be able to sketch these. I think this hind leg is going to have to be significantly larger than I originally had sketched, so I'm just going to erase it right now, and we're going to take it from there, because from here, our body continues just a little bit, and then we have this coxal joint right here. It's going to be found right after the middle leg. And then the hind leg is so bulbous and jumping, you can see that it's like half of the length of the entire body, and it's nice and it's like really wide. I had originally sketched it more like a basic grasshopper leg, but this is more like this. And the end of the hind leg does kind of come in and then bulb out like that a little bit, kind of like a bowling pin. And I think that if we look at the end of the femur right here, we might notice that it actually opens up. Let's go and zoom in. That's just a really cool jumping leg. And I'm not even exactly sure how to start with sketching that region right there. It looks a lot like a flower. Like, it reminds me of petals. And we also have a little bit of the abdomen that we're seeing from behind. So this part here is a cerci from the end of the abdomen. Susan makes a really great point, and that is that the femur, when it's laid down flat, pretty much covers the entire abdomen. So what I'm going to do is, I think I'm going to zoom out one more time just so that I can make sure I've got my ratios right. But what I think I'm going to end up doing is shortening the length of the abdomen rather than making my leg longer. But let's look. Maybe not. Hey, we're using a microscope. Let's measure it. So, we already know from the front of the head to the back of the abdomen is 0.8 centimeters. So if we go from the, so if we go from the base of the leg, the femur, to the end of the femur, we get 0.45 centimeters. So the length of the femur is over half of the length of the entire body. So if I wanted to do that on my paper here, all right, I've got what I imagine is the length of my body here, and then I want to split that in half and then give it a little bit more, and that should be about right. So my hind leg is more going to go to up here. And it's going to be really wide. That's more like it. Thank you for sticking it through with me. All right, let's zoom back in and get rid of some of those measurement bars. I wish the microscope knew when I was zooming in and the measurement bars changed as I did it, but they don't. So I can only measure when I am as far out as possible. And I do think that my microscope has the ability to do measurements at more than one zoom. But I have to calibrate it, and I have not calibrated anything other than for this zoom out. Now, I really wanted to see a nice picture of the tibia because I believe what we would see are some awesome spines along the hind tibia. Let me see if the other leg is any better. Not much. So, when we're looking at our hind leg, this leg is really, really well closed. And you'll see that it almost looks right around here that there's a second layer on this leg that almost looks spiny. Let's see. Right around here. That they're almost the hind leg, or the femur almost looks spiny, but that's actually the tibia. When you zoom, does it tell you what scale you've zoomed relative to the default? Default. Possibly. I would have to figure it out. Yes. Lots of grasshoppers have spiky tibias. That is something that many of them have in common. I'm glad that you've played with a good number of grasshoppers in your time. Their tibia are used not only for jumping, but they are also used as a defensive mechanism. All right. I'm going to give myself this nice long tibia. Ideally, it would have the ability to kind of tuck into the femur, and the femur could tuck down. The side on the tibia for the hind leg that is generally used, that generally has the spines, is the outside here. And they're grasshoppers, if you pick them up, you'll notice that they'll start kicking at you with their back legs. So those spines, they do use defensively. Now, they also have the ability to kind of just drop their legs off, which doesn't seem like a really smart move to me because adult grasshoppers don't have the ability to grow their legs back. And this, if we zoom all the way down, you can see the tarsal formula. So on the hind leg, the first tarsal segment is this longer rectangle. The second one is the heart-shaped, and then the third one is like all of the other final segments. So on the hind leg, we do have one longer tarsal segment before we get this cute little heart-shaped one, and then the claws. And from this view, we do get to see a little bit of the abdomen. So that's why I left it over on this side, because we can look and see what the abdomen looks like from this side at least. You can't see much, but you can see that those abdominal sternites are kind of overlapping one another. In the fall, I see a lot of slant-faced grasshoppers just chilling on the grass stems. Oh, that's cool. I love myself some grasshoppers. All right. So I'm just going to give us our abdomen here. Let's see. We're going to have wings that come down. And there isn't much of an abdomen happening here. And it kind of curves up towards the wings. So I'm kind of giving myself a new kind of outline here. Doop, doop, doop. All right. So I'm just going to go ahead. We can see approximately 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 abdominal segments. I can guarantee you that this pygmy grasshopper has more than that, but that's what we can see. So what I'm going to do is come in here and give myself 1. Start lower, get wider. 2, 3, and then I'm going to start going up towards kind of narrowing this up. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then some smaller ones here, 5, and then 6. And so that gives us this nice rounded abdomen that's going to come up here and tuck underneath the wings. So now all we have to do is I have to show off this really wicked awesome pronotum that is protecting the wings way back here in the base, and then we will have sketched a pygmy grasshopper. How adorable. I'm going to flip it over to the other side. Alright, so I am hoping that you have the ability, yeah, you can see this alright. So right here, this edge is the edge of the pronotum, and it comes up to that point right there. That's where the pronotum ends. That is where the first segment of the thorax ends. Way back here at the end of the abdomen. Makes me laugh. And then this underneath, you can see is that first pair of wings. They have 2 pair of wings under here. So they're just really nice and neat tucked under here. So what we're going to have, let's see. You've got your pronotum. I'm going to go from the top first. So I've got my pronotum here. It's going to cross in front of the Legos. Okay, Legos, haha. And then it wraps down, and it's going to reconnect right around here to that guy. So that's where our pronotum is. And then we do have these wings happening here, and they're going to be 2 pairs. So I'm just going to take 1 and then 2 here. And now what I'm going to do is kind of finish these abdominal segments up to the wings. Just widen the abdomen a little bit. That's fine. It makes me want to make the leg, the hind leg a little bit more bulbous on this side to kind of widen it out a little bit. That looks even better. Oh, I'm happy with that. I'm glad I decided to do that. He's so cute. Does the pronotum have to get lifted away like a beetle's elytra when it flies? No, the pronotum stays like that even when the grasshopper opens its wings to fly. And honestly, I'm not sure how that works because the pronotum is very bulbous up until this point, and I would think that the wings would have to open up closer to here to actually work well. If we follow the wings back, oh, check this out. Now I understand what's happening. Oh, All right, I'm glad we double checked. I'll show you what's happening. We have an additional line to take care of. Okay, do you see, we had looked and we had talked that these almost looked like a curtain right here and then right here. Well, this one coming off to the left, you can see right around here, there's this little horizontal line that comes out. That's the front pair of wings. Oh my goodness. So right here where you've got this, little arch on the pronotum, let me see. We're going to change this up a little bit. And this makes sense as to why there's now that notch on that pronotum, because this is also where there is musculature happening for that wing flight. Try and understand what's happening here. Give me 2 seconds as I sketch this out. But I think, yeah, so right about here, this is where that wing is going to be opening up. And you do even see these little crosses here. That's some of the beginning kind of wing venation. I'm much happier with that. That looks a lot better. I will look to see if AntLab has a video of an orthopteron flying in slow-mo. Oh, that would be so cool. Yeah, so the pronotum is a solid structure, so it's not going to be able to move, which is why when you asked that, I thought, the wings do have to sit a little bit higher up because they need to be able to open up from the outside without that pronotum shifting at all. So that's why that gave us the hint and the clue to go back and look, and that is exactly what was happening. I didn't notice this little suture right here, which is the separation in between the wing and the pronotum. Good catch. I love that you guys ask so many great questions that you like have me rethinking things, you know? That's good. He's so cute. I wish I could identify him. Yeah, but there are some katydids that have elongated pronotums, but the thing with pygmy grasshoppers is that elongated pronotum is a defining characteristic for this specific family. So even normal grasshoppers don't have this. Normal grasshoppers have what we call a tegmina, which is the front pair of wings that protects the hind wings, kind of like the elytra protects the hind wings, and that's why grasshoppers and katydids, they will have wings that open up to show off flight wings underneath, whereas our pygmies have this expanded pronotum that's unique to this family, the Tetragonidae family. And I've tried to identify this guy a couple of times, and I've even looked for keys that might work, and I have not found a place where I can happily identify him just yet. Alrighty, I think we got to see all of the parts. We even flipped him over for a minute and got to see the mouth parts from underneath. We got to see the wings and the eyes. I would really like to know what those extra organs are on the front of the head. That is going to bother me for a moment until I figure it out. Oh, look at how cute he is! Okay, so I was just looking at an article on, admittedly, these are endangered deadleaf grasshoppers, but they're deadleaf grasshoppers in the family Troglodytes. And this article, you can actually, I'm going to share this with you in the chat. If you go to that article, it's not behind a paywall, and you can scroll through and see some of the really cute little pictures of these pygmy grasshoppers, because there are many pygmy grasshoppers that also have pronodal shields that do actually go and protect their heads, like a little leaf, and they call these ones the deadleaf pygmy grasshoppers, where their pronodal shield expands backwards over the wings and front over the head. And you definitely have to go and check out that link because they are super cute. Oh my goodness. Aww. Yeah, exactly. Very good. I'm glad I was able to clue you in on that one. And then I think I've shared this with you in the past, but the scientific term for a jumping leg is saltatorial. They generally just mean jumping legs, or especially jumping legs that are this shape, where they're wide at the bottom and narrow at the top, and they jump around. Right? Those are some amazing pronodal shields. I'm so glad that somebody else was here to enjoy them with me, because when I found them, oh my goodness. Because saltar is to jump in Spanish. Oh, that's so cool. I didn't know that, and now I will. Oh, that's fun. Because I know nadar, N-A-D-A-R, is to swim, and then we have the natatorial. Yeah. And so that one I can root back to Spanish too. Saltar is to jump. Very good. All right, Susan, I hope that you had a great time sketching with me today. I'm closing in on heading off. I feel like we actually got a longer live stream in than I thought we might. So an hour and a half, that's pretty good. And even though you were tired, you stayed with me, and I super appreciate it. So I'm going to switch over here to my closer. Doop, doop, doop. All right, very good. So, keep in mind that I do teach classes on OutSchool for ages 5 to 8, 9 to 12-year-olds. And in about 2 weeks, I had a request for a college prep entomology class. So this is going to be for students ages 13 to 17. So I have a teenage 6-week course coming up on insect anatomy, where we are going to go over all of the different types of legs and all of the different types of wings and all of the different types of antenna, and we're going to talk about those types in each insect. It's going to be a great time. So if you know a teenager in your life, those classes are going to end up being Tuesdays at 6 p.m. Eastern for a short period of time while I'm teaching them. I think they start March 6th. Is March 6th the Tuesday? No, March 7th. Oh, right. Thank you for subscribing. Those of you who are chatting with me, I know you're subscribers, and I really appreciate it. And right there is the link to PayPal. You guys know where it is. I really appreciate anything that you have, and or anything that you can share with me, or if you are motivated, you can go ahead and do that. It's always super appreciated, and I do have They will be on the way shortly. I finally picked up packaging material and like packages and stuff to ship my presents for those of you who have been donating. So I really super duper appreciate it. And this is my email address, trisha@theinsectopia.com. I love to see your sketches. And even if they're not perfect, mine are never perfect either. That's a part of art. And so share your sketches with me, because I love to see the art that is created and the art that is inspired by these live streams. It makes me feel like what I'm doing matters, and what I'm doing is, changing people's opinions about bugs and making people look closer at the world, and all of those things are things that I'm passionate about and I love. And Thursdays are long days for me, but even though they're long, they're always enjoyable. So thank you so much for making my Thursday nights enjoyable, and I look forward to seeing you next Sunday at 4 p.m. Eastern, or next week, Thursday at 10 p.m. Eastern. Have a wonderful rest of your week, and stay buggy!